One more thing, JJ, going back, I do want to tell you as to how close I feel to you. My wife loved you, and you are absolutely right about everything you said, but you are dead wrong about one thing, and I would never hurt Maggie, and I would never hurt Paul. And it is important to me that you know that, because she did love you, and I hope you know that. And I hope you know that I mean what I say here today.
What if I told you that the most powerful family in a small South Carolina county controlled justice for nearly a century, only to have their dynasty destroyed by a single forgotten video recording? A video that would expose lies, unravel an alibi, and reveal that sometimes the most dangerous place to be is inside your own family. If you're fascinated by cases where the smallest details reveal the biggest secrets, where power meets its breaking point, and where one piece of evidence changes everything, you need to subscribe to Dark Trail Files right now. Hit that notification bell, because we're diving deep into stories where justice finds a way, even when it seems impossible. Trust me, you won't want to miss what's coming. Now, let's get into it. For 87 years, 3 generations, and countless trials, the Murdaugh name controlled justice in South Carolina's Lowcountry. From 1920 until 2005, a Murdaugh served as solicitor, the top prosecutor across 5 counties. They didn't just practice law, they were the law. Defendants heard the Murdaugh name and knew their fate was already decided. Judges deferred. Politicians accommodated. Communities bowed. Alex Murdaugh, born in 1968, inherited this legacy like a crown. His grandfather built the foundation. His father reinforced it. Alex was supposed to carry it forward. By the time he joined the family law firm, he had everything a man could want. A beautiful wife named Maggie. 2 sons, Buster and Paul. A sprawling 1,700-acre hunting estate called Moselle. Millions of dollars flowing through his hands from settlements and legal fees. Respect that money alone couldn't buy. But legacies built on power have a dangerous quality. They make you believe you're untouchable. That rules don't apply. That consequences are for other people. For years, Alex lived in that delusion. He stole from clients who trusted him. He fed an addiction that consumed thousands of pills. He lied so often that truth became whatever he needed it to be in that moment. And when his world finally started crumbling, when exposure became inevitable, he made a choice that would destroy everything his family had built for nearly a century. The day started normally at Moselle. The weather was warm and slightly humid, typical for early June in South Carolina. Alex, Maggie, and Paul had dinner together that evening. From the outside, they looked like any other family sharing a meal. But beneath that surface, pressure was building. Pressure that had been mounting for months. Pressure that would explode before the night ended. At some point after dinner, Maggie went down to the dog kennels, a short walk from the main house. Paul joined her there. The kennels were a familiar place, a spot where the family spent time with their dogs, where Paul often checked on the animals he loved. It should have been routine. It should have been safe. Instead, it became a crime scene that would captivate the nation. At 10:07 p.m., a call came in that would set everything in motion. Listen carefully to Alex's words, his tone, his breathing, because investigators would later analyze every second of this recording, comparing what he said that night to what he would claim later.
I'd like to play, Doug, the Colleton County portion of the 911 call, which is in evidence as Defendant's Exhibit Number 9.
2021, 22 hours, 7 minutes, 9 seconds.
I'm still here, okay?
Colleton County Communication.
Colleton, I have an Alex Murdaugh on the line, caller from 4147 Moselle Road. He's advising that his wife and child was shot.
Okay, and sir, give me the address again.
It's 4147 Moselle Road. I've been up to it now. It's bad.
Okay, how did they shoot?
When you say I've been up to it now and it's bad, what are you referring to?
I'm talking about what I saw was what y'all saw pictures of. And I mean, it was bad. It was terrible. And when I first got there, I know I got out of the car. I got out of the car. I mean, I knew. Got out of the car, but right at first, I don't think I went all the way to them. I think I ran back and that's when I called 911. And so I called 911, and while I was doing that, then is when I went to Maggie and I went to Paul. And so that's what I think I'm talking about.
Keep going, please.
Do it now, it's fast.
Okay. How do they shoot? Do they shoot themselves?
Oh no, hell no.
Okay, and are they breathing?
No, ma'am.
Okay, and you said it's your wife and your son?
My wife and my son.
Are they in a vehicle?
No, ma'am, they're on the ground out at my kennels.
Okay, and did you see anyone?
He shot in the head, and he shot really bad. He shot it.
Okay, where is he shot at?
Ma'am, I don't know, but there's blood everywhere. I see his brain. Face down. I tried to turn her a little bit, but she's got a hole in her head.
Okay, is he breathing at all?
No, nobody.
Okay, do you see anything? Do you see anyone in the area?
No, ma'am. No, ma'am. No.
Is there any guns near them at all?
No, there's here.
What color is your house on the outside?
If that's what you're asking, they didn't shoot themselves, ma'am.
What?
Alec, right in there, you say the word here. What? Are you calling anybody or anything?
No, I'm talking to that dispatcher.
And what did you mean when you said here?
If you listen to that call, one of the first things she asked me was, did they shoot themselves? And I knew there's no way. I mean, I knew they didn't shoot themselves. There wasn't a gun. They didn't shoot themselves. And she'd asked me that. And then she asked me another question, something about that. And you hear me say here, and then you hear the thing talking. I'm telling her here, and then I say something, and then you hear me say, if that's what you're asking. And I'm letting her know they didn't shoot themselves. I'm saying here, and then I give her an explanation, which you can't hear on that phone, but it's obvious to me what I'm doing. And I say, if that's what you're asking me. Like David Owens asked me on August 11th, did I call a dog or was I talking to somebody? There was no dog that was out, and there was nobody there.
Talk about that briefly. Well, when you got there and you saw Maggie and Paul, where were the dogs?
The dogs were in the kennels. Dogs were in the kennels. They were wherever they were when law enforcement got there.
And you've seen pictures, and they called Dale Davis to the stand and talk about the hose rolled up. Did you roll the hose up?
No.
Did you do anything down there at the kennels when you got there other than call 911 and attend to Maggie and Paul?
No, I do know that I was trying to find a flashlight. I was trying to find a gun. Other than those things, no, I didn't do anything at the kennel. I didn't do anything with any hose. I didn't do anything with any dogs.
Was there anybody with you?
No.
Keep going, please.
It's white. You can't see it from the road.
Okay, is it a house or a mobile home?
It's a house.
Okay, and what is your name?
My name is Alex Murdaugh.
Okay, did you hear anything, or did you come home and find out?
I've been gone. I just came back.
Okay, and was anyone else supposed to be at your house?
No, ma'am. Please hurry.
We're getting somebody out there to you.
Oh, man. Oh, should have known.
Alec, we just heard you say, I should have known. What are you referring to?
I said, Paul, I should have known.
What were you referring to?
I was referring to Paul got so many threats. Didn't take serious. Think twice about. So I'm just telling him, Paul, I should have known. I don't specifically remember saying that, but I can clearly hear myself say that.
What kind of threats did you understand Paul was receiving?
I mean, Paul got the most vile threats. I mean, the stuff that was on social media, I mean, it was, you couldn't believe it. You couldn't believe it.
Keep going, please, Doug.
Okay, what is her name?
Maggie and Paul.
Maggie is her name?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. When's the last time you talked to Maggie?
Hour and a half ago, probably 2 hours ago.
What? Okay, you said about 2 hours ago you talked to them?
Approximately, yes, ma'am, approximately.
You were asked the last time you saw them, and you said hour and a half to 2 hours ago, and then she followed up 2 hours ago. You just heard that?
I did hear that. And I said approximately to her question.
When was the last time you saw them, Maggie and Paul?
Right after I took the chicken from Bubba.
The video we've seen is timestamp 8:44 p.m. Is that correct?
That's right.
So was it shortly after 8:44?
It was.
And then you called 911. There are records of that, but do you remember roughly 9:07 or right before 9:07?
I mean, I've seen the records and seen the transcripts, yeah.
And then this is, and the records of this, but this is some minutes into the conversation with 911 operators, correct?
That's right. Like,
knowing everything we know now, I mean, was it roughly an hour and a half the last time you saw him?
it was. That would, with the time of however long it took to get to this point, however many minutes that is 10:10 to 10, however many, you can look exactly and see what point this is and know what time it is, but it's between 10 and 10:15. And so I'd seen them around 8:45, a little bit after.
The panic in Alex's voice sounded genuine. He told the dispatcher his wife and son had been shot, that it was bad, that they needed help immediately. He mentioned Paul had been getting threats because of a boat crash 2 years earlier, a crash that killed 19-year-old Mallory Beach. Even in those first frantic moments, Alec was already constructing a narrative, already pointing investigators away from himself and toward an external threat, already controlling the story. When deputies arrived, their body cams captured everything. Watch how Alec presents himself. Notice what he's wearing. Pay attention to his demeanor, because later, experts would study this footage frame by frame, looking for inconsistencies between his words and his actions.
They are dead, aren't they?
Just turn on those.
Yes, sir. That's what it looks like.
Randy. Maggie's caller dead. Where are you now? All right. Yeah, the police are here now. The police are here now.
Affirmative.
That's my brother.
Okay. When was the last time you were here with them? Or talked to them or anything like that?
It was earlier tonight. I don't know the exact time, but
Okay.
I left. I was probably gone an hour and a half from my mom's, and I saw them about 45 minutes before that.
Okay.
I rode around with Paul for 2 hours this afternoon in the pickup truck.
That's your son, Paul? Okay.
Somebody going to check him?
Yes, sir. They've already checked them.
They did check him?
Yes, sir.
This is official that they're dead?
Yes, sir. That's what it looks like.
I'm sorry.
No. You're fine.
I'm very sorry. Gotta call her parents.
What's her name?
Her name is Maggie Murdaugh. Margaret Brandstetter Murdaugh. How you doing?
What's her birthday?
9/15/68.
Okay. And what's your son's first name? You said Paul?
Paul Terry Murdaugh.
And what's his birthday?
Jason, do you have anybody
4.
coming through town that could stop and pick up that tent? I see lighting off in the distance.
What are they covering them up?
I got some getting dressed now, Sheriff. I'll have somebody stop and grab it.
Tell them they don't have to do that. They don't.
Sergeant Daniel Green was first on scene. His body cam shows Alec standing near the kennels, visibly shaken but oddly composed. He's wearing a clean white t-shirt and shorts. No visible blood, no brain matter, no tissue. This detail would become crucial because Alec claimed he had checked both bodies for pulses, that he had tried to turn Paul over, that he had touched them in those desperate moments trying to find signs of life. But his clothes told a different story. They were spotless. The scene itself was horrific. Paul had been shot twice with a shotgun. Once in the chest, the blast so powerful it tore through his body. Then again, a contact shot to the back of his head that was catastrophic. Maggie had been shot multiple times with a different weapon, a rifle, as she apparently tried to run. The violence was extreme, personal, overkill. Yet Alec, who supposedly discovered this scene and physically interacted with the bodies, showed no physical evidence of that contact. Deputies also noticed something else in those early moments. Alec's emotional state fluctuated. One moment he seemed devastated. The next he was casually greeting another officer with, "Hey, how you doing?" as if momentarily forgetting the horror around him. The shift was subtle but present. When the cameras were focused on him, when someone was watching, the grief intensified. When attention drifted elsewhere, his composure returned. What responding officers didn't know that night was that June 7th wasn't just another day for Alex Murdaugh. It was the day his carefully constructed life was scheduled to collapse. That very morning, Gene Seckinger, the chief financial officer at Alec's law firm, had confronted him about missing money. $792,000 in legal fees that should have been deposited into the firm's account but had vanished. Alec assured her the money was there, that it was just a clerical error, that he could produce it. He was calm, convincing, practiced at lying, but he couldn't produce it because it was already gone, spent feeding an addiction and maintaining the illusion of wealth. The missing fees weren't an isolated incident. They were just the latest discovery in what would eventually be revealed as a massive, years-long theft operation. Alec had been stealing from the most vulnerable people imaginable. Clients who had been paralyzed in accidents. Families who had lost loved ones. People who trusted him to protect their interests while he looted their settlements. The total would eventually reach nearly $9 million. All stolen to feed a daily oxycodone habit that required 30 milligrams every 15 minutes just to function. One of his most despicable thefts involved Gloria Satterfield, the Murdaugh family's housekeeper. In 2018, Gloria died after what Alec claimed was a fall at their home. Alec recommended her family hire an attorney to sue him over the incident, promising the insurance payout would help them. Instead, he arranged for the settlement money, over $4 million, to be funneled into accounts he controlled. Gloria's family received nothing. They didn't even know there had been a settlement until years later. And all of this was about to be exposed. 3 days after the murders, on June 10th, Alec was scheduled for a hearing in the Mallory Beach wrongful death lawsuit. That hearing would require him to disclose detailed financial records, bank statements, asset valuations, records that would immediately reveal the fraud. His law partners were already asking questions. Clients were demanding accountings. The walls were closing in from every direction. Then came the murders, and suddenly everything changed. The hearing was postponed. The financial scrutiny evaporated. Everyone's focus shifted to tragedy and sympathy. Alec bought himself time. The question investigators would eventually confront was simple and horrifying. Did he kill for that time? From the very first moment deputies arrived, Alec's story was consistent and detailed. After dinner, he said he took a nap on the couch at the main house while Maggie went down to the kennels. When he woke around 9:15, he drove to his mother's house in nearby Alameda to check on her. She had Alzheimer's and his father was ailing. He stayed there for about an hour, then drove back to Moselle. When he arrived at 10:07, he discovered the bodies and immediately called 911. The crucial element of this story was simple. He wasn't at the kennels that evening. He hadn't seen Maggie or Paul in the 45 minutes before leaving for his mother's house. If he wasn't at the crime scene around the time of the murders, he couldn't have killed them. This timeline became his shield. Without evidence placing him at the kennels, investigators had suspicions, but no proof. For months, Alec maintained this story. He repeated it to investigators. He told it to friends. He said it in recorded interviews. Never wavering, never changing. So consistent that even people who knew him started to believe maybe he was telling the truth. Maybe someone really had come onto the property and killed Maggie and Paul. Maybe the threats against Paul, because of the boat crash, had been real. Maybe Alec was just a grieving father and husband. But investigators had doubts. They knew about the financial crimes. They knew Alec had powerful motives. They knew he had opportunity and access to weapons. They just couldn't prove he was lying about his whereabouts. Then they gained access to Paul's locked iPhone, and everything changed. Paul's phone was locked with a 6-digit passcode. For months, even federal agents couldn't crack it. The phone sat in an evidence locker, holding secrets no one could access. Then finally, technical specialists broke through the security. What they found on that phone would become the most important piece of evidence in the entire case. A video, recorded at 8:44 p.m. on June 7th. 50 seconds long, filmed at the dog kennels. Paul had recorded it for his friend Rogan Gibson, showing Gibson's dog cache in one of the kennels. It was an innocent video, meaningless by itself, except for one detail that would unravel 20 months of lies. In the background, 3 distinct voices can be heard. Paul's voice as he films, Maggie's voice talking about their dog Bubba catching a chicken, and a third voice, clear, unmistakable, undeniable, Alec's voice, caught on camera at 8:44 p.m. at the exact spot where his wife and son would be shot dead just minutes later. Imagine swearing to investigators for 20 months that you were never at a location, building your entire defense around that claim, only to discover your murdered son accidentally recorded you being exactly where you swore you never were. Watch Alec's face as prosecutors reveal this evidence. This is the moment his defense collapsed.
Well, what time did that camera come on?
At 8:44:49.
Okay. And how long was that video again?
It was roughly 50 seconds.
And when did that video end?
At 8:45:47.
And you're certain about that?
Yes, sir.
Why are you certain about that?
Because I reviewed the video. For looking at the length of the video, it compared it to the length of the camera time that was on. Also, too, there was data recorded in the video because it was taken with the phone that had GPS coordinates along with a description of the phone that took it.
Okay. And you're telling this jury today that you're certain that that is when that video was recorded on Paul's phone?
Yes, sir.
And as we referenced, when we're looking at that timeline, there's location data associated with that video as well, correct?
Yes, sir, correct.
All right. And where did you plot that location data?
It plotted to Moselle Road to near a building that had a red roof on it.
Okay. I'm going to show you what's been marked as State's Exhibit 297. Do you recognize that, sir?
Yes, sir, I do.
What is that?
It is a CD that contains a video. On it, it says Kennel Video, has States 297 on there, along with my initials and the date of 1/30/23.
And have you reviewed the contents of that CD?
Yes, sir, I have.
And what is the contents of that CD?
It is a video I found on Paul Murdaugh's phone. The video looks like inside maybe a kennel area with a fence around it and a dog, I believe to be a lab, where he's trying to take a video of the tail of the dog.
Okay. All right. And that's what you see in that video.
Yes, sir.
What do you hear in the video?
You hear 3 different voices in the video. You can tell, because they're so different, you can tell that they're different voices.
All right. Now, are any of those voices known personally to you?
No, sir, they are not.
Okay. This time, State would move to enter Exhibit 297 into evidence.
The previous objection, though. Submitted over objection.
All right. And at this time, the State's going to publish that video. It is not under seal.
Get out. Quick, Cash. Quick. Posted. Get. Hey, you got burgers now. Hey, brother. There's a chicken. Come on, Cash. Quick.
What time was that video recorded again, Lieutenant Dove?
The camera begins at 8:44:49 p.m.
And ends when?
At 8:45:47 p.m.
Cross-examination.
When investigators showed the video to multiple witnesses who knew the family, their identifications were immediate and certain. Rogan Gibson, Paul's best friend who considered Alec a second father, testified he was 100% sure that was Alec's voice. He had spoken to Paul on the phone around 8:40 that evening and heard Alec in the background then too. Other witnesses confirmed the same thing. That was definitely Alec. No question. No doubt. The phone data told an even more damning story. Paul read his last text message at 8:49 p.m. Maggie read her last text at 8:49 p.m. After that moment, both phones locked and were never used again. Never opened. Never checked. The timeline was devastating. The video placed Alec with Maggie and Paul at 8:44. Their phones went silent forever just 5 minutes later. Then Alec left the property at 9:06. Driving to his mother's house with his phone showing normal activity, texting, calling, moving. Everything appearing routine while 2 bodies lay cooling in the kennels behind him. For 20 months, through investigation after investigation, through mounting evidence and increasing pressure, Alex Murdaugh maintained his lie. He wasn't at the kennels that night. He hadn't seen them. His story never wavered. Then came the trial, and prosecutors presented the kennel video to the jury. Alec had no choice left. The lie that held everything together had been exposed. He had to take the witness stand and explain. Taking the stand in your own murder trial is always risky. Prosecutors will attack every word. But when video evidence has destroyed your alibi, when everyone has heard your voice placing you at the scene, what choice do you have? Listen to Alec now as he admits to lying for 20 months and ask yourself, if he lied about this, what else is he lying about?
One more thing, JJ, going back, I do want to tell you as to how close I feel to you. My wife loved you, and you are absolutely right about everything you said, but you are dead wrong about one thing, and I would never hurt Maggie, and I would never hurt Paul. And it is important to me that you know that, because she did love you, and I hope you know that. And I hope you know that I mean what I say here today.
On February 23rd, 2023, Alex Murdaugh took the witness stand and dropped a bombshell admission. Yes, he said, he had been at the kennels that night. Yes, he had lied to investigators. Yes, his original story was false. But he swore he didn't kill them. His new story was this. After being at the kennels with Maggie and Paul, he went back to the house and fell asleep. When he woke, he drove to his mother's. When he returned, he found them dead. But why lie? Why maintain a false story for 20 months if you were innocent? Alex's explanation was addiction and paranoia. He said his oxycodone abuse made him distrustful of everyone, even law enforcement. He claimed he was confused and scared, that he wasn't thinking clearly, that he regretted lying and was sorry. The words sounded rehearsed, calculated. Like everything else Alex said, they felt designed to manipulate rather than reveal truth. Throughout the trial, Alex's emotional displays became a subject of intense scrutiny. Watch when he cries, when he breaks down, when he needs a tissue. Then notice how quickly he recovers when testimony moves to technical details. Are these genuine tears of a grieving father, or the performance of a man fighting for his freedom?
Large amount of blood around each of them, as well as brain matter.
Did you ultimately have a conversation with Mr. Murdaugh when you were out there?
I did.
And do you see him here in the courtroom today, the person that you talked to?
I do.
And can you point him out to the jury, please?
Yes, sir. He's right there, wearing a dark blue or black jacket.
Your Honor, can the record reflect that he's identified Mr. Murdaugh?
It does.
When you ultimately approached Mr. Murdaugh, what's the first thing that you did?
The first thing I did was ensure that he did not have any weapons on him. That's standard procedure for arriving on a scene like that. Any kind of weapons that are anywhere on the scene, I want to be aware of just so I can know whether they're there or not, and if they are there, who has access to them at any point. And that's for my safety as well as other responding officers and for anyone else that's on scene.
Did Mr. Murdaugh give you any possible explanation for this when you approached him?
His immediate reaction was to start telling me about an incident that had happened with his son.
The tears came frequently and dramatically when photos of Maggie and Paul were shown, when details of the crime scene were described, when witnesses testified about the family. Alec would sob, his shoulders shaking, his face in his hands. But deputies who responded that night remembered something different. They saw a man who was upset, but never crying. A man whose eyes were dry even as he stood over the bodies of his wife and son. The contrast was striking. On the night they died, no tears. At trial facing life in prison, constant tears. The timing felt too convenient, too performative, too much like someone playing a role rather than living genuine grief. Blanca Trubiate-Simpson worked for the Murdaughs for more than a decade. She wasn't a forensic expert or detective. She was someone who knew the family intimately, who understood their routines and habits. Sometimes the most powerful testimony comes from the people who simply observe without agenda. Listen to what she noticed in the days after the murders. Details so small they seemed meaningless at first, but later became pieces of a larger, darker puzzle.
When I got inside, I didn't turn on any lights. I didn't do anything. I walked through the front door and I went in the kitchen. And I was kind of, when I looked in the kitchen, I kind of just stopped in my tracks and I looked at the stove, and I was kind of, I don't know what the word is. When I looked and I noticed the stove, that there was no pots on the stove, it was kind of unusual, because usually when they ate dinner the night before, the pots usually stayed on the stove. Very, very seldom would she put, certain meals in the refrigerator. A lot of times it was just left on the stove until the next day. And the pots were not in the sink, and they were not on the stove. And then as I walked through, if you walk through the kitchen, like you're going to, from the kitchen, if you walk through the kitchen, if you go to the left, there's two freezer and a refrigerator, and the laundry room sat right there to the left. There's a back door to the back porch, and then there's the laundry room door. They're both right there. And as I turned to go to the laundry room, I noticed that her pajamas were in the middle of the doorway, right in the middle, laid neatly in the middle of the doorway going into the laundry room. It was her pajama pants, a pair of underwear, and her pajama top.
Was that unusual?
That was very unusual. Because she wouldn't lay her clothes out like that, not in the middle of the door like that. It just didn't look right to me.
And you took care of the house?
Yes.
You took care of the clothes?
Yes.
And not to get too personal, but sometimes you can't help it. Were the underwear there with the pajamas unusual?
Yes.
Why?
She didn't wear underwear with her pajamas.
No underwear with pajamas. But that struck you.
No underclothes with the pajamas.
But that struck you as unusual. They were there with the pajamas.
Yes, sir, because the underwear appeared to be clean, not dirty. They still had like fold marks.
And the pots, and I may have just missed it, you said, where would the pots end up when you found them?
After I looked at the pajamas on the floor, the way that they were set, I turned around and I said, well, I wonder where the pots are. So I opened the refrigerator door, and the pots were sitting inside the refrigerator with lids on them. And I was like, who did this? I don't know at that point, but that was not normal for the whole pot to be sitting in the fridge.
Did you make any other observations in the house, the bathroom, or anywhere else?
In the master bathroom was her clothes were sitting next to the tub. It was a small pile of clothes right next to the tub, and by the shower. If you walk in the master bedroom, there's a big garden tub, spa type tub. And then right here is the shower, and there's a window. On the floor next to the shower was a slight puddle of water, a towel, and a pair of khaki pants. And then as I went to the left to see if there was anything else that was out, I looked in the closet, and in the closet was a white damp towel on the floor. It appeared that a t-shirt had fallen off of the stack of t-shirts that were on top of the shelf right there in the closet. It was laying on the floor next to the towel.
When you took care of the home, was that, tell us how the clothes were laid out, the shirts, the shorts, were you saying up on a shelf, or the shirts, how were
in the closet there was a shelf. There was some shelves, smaller shelves right here, and then there was some long ones. Maggie used to keep her clothes on these, And then there was a shorter one, kind of like little box looking, up. Alex used to keep his clothes, his belts and stuff in that. And then on top, there was also an area where he kept T-shirts. They were folded and they were kept on the shelf.
Blanca returned to Moselle the morning after the murders at Alex's request. He had called her early, emotional, asking her to clean the house because people would be coming to pay respects. When she arrived, she found something strange. Maggie's car was parked in an unusual spot, not where she normally left it. In the laundry room, she discovered Maggie's pajamas laid out neatly on the floor. But Maggie hadn't been planning to stay at Moselle that night. She preferred their beach house on Edisto Island. She never laid out clothes on the floor. The scene felt staged, prepared, wrong. In Alex's bathroom, Blanca found more oddities. A damp towel, a puddle of water near the shower, khaki pants that she recognized from that morning. But the shirt Alec had been wearing in a Snapchat video Paul posted just an hour before the murders, a distinctive blue shirt she had ironed and straightened the collar on that very morning, that shirt was gone. Vanished. Despite searching his entire wardrobe, she never saw it again. Then came the moment that shattered Blanca's trust completely. 2 months after the murders, in August 2021, Alex sat her down and brought up something bizarre. He asked if she remembered what he was wearing the day of the murders. Then he said he had worn a Vineyard Vines shirt that day. Blanca was shocked. She remembered distinctly that she had ironed a seafoam green polo that morning. She had fixed its collar. She knew exactly what he wore, and it wasn't a Vineyard Vines shirt. The question felt like a test, like Alec was trying to plant a false memory, or see if she would corroborate a new version of events. But she knew he was lying. In that moment, sitting in her employer's home, the realization hit her like a physical blow. Everything felt wrong. The missing shirt, the staged pajamas, the odd timing of questions. During the trial, one final piece of evidence cemented her certainty. Body cam footage from the night of the murders showed a beach towel on the front seat of Alex's car. That same towel she had washed, dried, and placed on a high shelf in the laundry room. The towel he shouldn't have had access to. The towel that suggested he had been back to the house between the murders and the 911 call. That towel, more than any forensic evidence, convinced Blanca that Alec had killed Maggie and Paul. The defense tried desperately to create reasonable doubt. They brought in experts who suggested 2 shooters were involved. They argued the crime scene investigation was sloppy. They claimed the shooter had to be shorter than Alec's 6'4" frame based on bullet trajectories. They painted a picture of rushed investigators and contaminated evidence. But forensic science is stubborn. It doesn't care about reputation or storytelling or reasonable doubt. It only cares about what actually happened. This is where alternative narratives collapse under the weight of evidence. Dr. Kenneth Kinsey, a crime scene reconstruction expert with decades of experience, systematically dismantled every theory the defense proposed. Watch how methodically he breaks down the defense's claims, piece by piece, until nothing remains but the truth.
You had an opportunity to hear the defense's theory on how Paul was shot, correct?
Yes, sir, I did.
I would like to demonstrate that with you right now.
Yes, sir.
Can you walk us through the defense's theory as you understood it to be?
Yes, sir, I can.
Your Honor, for purposes of this demonstration, I don't know if the court would allow it, but it'd be nice if we could open this door. I want to make sure that there's security here, but if we could have that door open just for a minute or two.
Can you open that door? Yes, sir.
Thank you, Your Honor. I'm grabbing what Smart states Exhibit 4, which is a camo Benelli Super Black Eagle 3 shotgun 12 gauge. We'll use this for the demonstration, so step down. Now, is this door the same width as the feed room door?
It's a couple inches wider than the feed room door.
And of course, the feed room door doesn't have this, it's inset, correct?
That is correct.
So this is not exactly a replication of what happened at the feed room door, correct?
No, sir, it's not. The door swings the same direction, though.
Now, you have given me permission. I'm very careful about muzzle velocity. Muzzle awareness. But you have given me permission to point this at you, correct?
I have.
Okay. You actually asked me to, correct?
Yes, sir, I did.
All right. So go in there and stand a couple of feet back. It doesn't have to be 5 feet. But you have since testified that Paul was 5 feet inside the feed room, correct?
Can we demonstrate the first shot out here?
I am.
I believe they...
All right, stand back a little bit because you got to stumble toward me.
Yes, sir.
So I'm going to point like I'm pointing at you.
Yes, sir.
Paul is shot. Where's the shooter approximately outside the door?
The breech face or the ejection port of the shotgun is just past the door frame.
Okay, Paul has just been shot.
Yes, sir.
And in the defense's theory, you tell me what to do, and you act this out, and I'm going to do what you tell me to do based on the defense's theory of the case.
The defense agreed with the assessment that Paul stood there for a moment, bleeding down his injured left arm, and he slowly walked toward the door.
Okay, and what does the shooter do?
The shooter's coming in the door.
And then what does the shooter do?
He shoots Paul in the back of the head after he passes him.
Okay, and then shoots Paul in the back of the head like this, and where does the blood spatter go?
The blood spatter, the pellet defects, and one that I didn't know about that the expert collected was in the door frame at the top of the door.
Now I understand this is a little different than the feed room door. That's the best we can do. So what did you find odd about the theory, first of all?
I think the theory is preposterous, in my opinion.
Can you walk me through why you think it's preposterous?
Absolutely. Number one, that dry lock number 2 shot shell fires a projectile at 1,450 feet per second once it leaves the muzzle of that weapon. As was mentioned, that's a millisecond. That's fast. To think that the pressure from flesh and bone will cause that pellet, those steel pellets now, we're not talking about lead. Lead's a little bit more giving. Lead is malleable. It will crush or flatten. We're talking about steel, BB pellets. They will turn around because of the pressure, go back the opposite direction, 180 degree direction at enough velocity to dent a steel exterior door and embed in the door frame. That doesn't happen. That doesn't happen, in my opinion.
I don't know if you mentioned this earlier, but can you talk about, make sure I get it right.
And can I add?
Please do.
Also, there's no defects to the OSB or the T111 siding in the bottom of the room.
All right, wait a second. You said a lot right there.
Yes, sir.
TS what?
TS111. It's like a exterior paneling that people put on their buildings. That's what's on the building.
For all us city boys, we appreciate you describing that. Thank you.
Yes, sir. It's a whole weather paneling. There's no defects at the bottom, and if that theory is correct, if this is an entrance and this is an exit, the shot still had to go somewhere. There's no defects down there on anything. The door frame, as I mentioned in my previous testimony, the door frame has a clean void. That would be perfectly in line with those shot from that shot shell. There's no cracks, chips, pellet holes in the cement. There's nothing in the OSB. That's cheap plywood. That's man-made plywood. There's no defects in the plywood. There's no high-velocity blood spatter on the floor. What was pointed out to you is medium velocity, and that's from coming out of the wound and gravity bringing it down to the floor. You would see a pattern on the floor just like what you can see in the photographs at the top of that door. None of that's there. So I have to look at the science, and I have to look at inertia, and I have to look at that shot shell and how fast that shell is propelled out of that barrel, and I know that it can't turn around 180 degrees and go back the other direction. It's not like blood and tissue. We're talking about steel pellets.
Dr. Kinsey's testimony was devastating to the defense. He explained that the two-shooter theory was preposterous based on the physical evidence. The positioning of the bodies, the blood spatter patterns, the trajectory of bullets, everything pointed to a single shooter who knew the property intimately. Paul had been shot first while standing in or near the feed room. The first shot hit him in the chest with a shotgun. The second shot, fired when he was already incapacitated, was a contact wound to the back of his head. Execution style. The blast so close it left stippling and muzzle imprint. Maggie heard the shots. She came running from wherever she was on the property. The shooter then turned on her with a different weapon, a rifle. She was hit multiple times as she tried to flee. The attack was frenzied, personal, excessive. Someone wasn't just killing her. They were making sure she stayed dead. The weapon used was later identified as likely a .300 Blackout rifle, a weapon the Murdaugh family owned, but which went missing months before the murders and was never recovered. Dr. Kinsey also destroyed the height theory. The defense had suggested the shooter was 5'2" to 5'4" based on bullet angles. Kinsey demonstrated how ridiculous this was. A taller shooter could easily crouch, kneel, or adjust their position. The variables were too numerous to make any definitive claims about height. The theory was grasping at straws, trying to create doubt where none reasonably existed. The most damning part of Kinsey's testimony was the timeline. Based on rigor mortis, body temperature, and cellular activity, he estimated the murders occurred between 8:40 and 9 p.m. The kennel video placed Alec there at 8:44. Maggie and Paul's phones stopped being used at 8:49. Alec left the property at 9:06. The window was tiny, approximately 22 minutes from the video to Alec's departure. In that window, someone shot and killed 2 people with 2 different weapons, then left the property. The shooter had to be someone who knew where the weapons were kept, how to access them, how to move around the property without raising alarm. Someone like Alec. As the trial unfolded with the world watching, another story was playing out behind the scenes that would later cast a shadow over the proceedings, though ultimately it wouldn't change the outcome. Becky Hill, the Culleton County Clerk of Court, was supposed to ensure a fair trial. Instead, she was writing a book about it while it was happening, hoping for a conviction that would boost her sales. Watch what she says here, but know that later she would plead guilty to multiple crimes related to her conduct during this trial.
You have described in your book your role as Switzerland, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. And that is that you should not be in any way opinionated about what's going on in the trial, is that correct?
That's true.
Okay. Yet in your book you indicated a number of different points during the trial you had concluded he was guilty, is that correct?
I think...
Your Honor, I object at this point. I don't know if her conclusions in the book are in any way relevant to what occurred during the trial and whether or not there was any communications with the jurors, which is the sole issue that we're here for today, is whether or not Ms. Hill had any extraneous influence on the jurors. And so I think this is going a little far afield. We object to the relevance here.
Overruled. You may continue.
Let me give you an example. You indicate riding back from Moselle that you and 3 other people were in a car and you all decided adamantly, I think was the word you used, that he was guilty, that he had killed his wife and son. Is that what you put in the book?
I can't remember if I put that in the book, but if you say I did, then I will agree with you. Did that happen? We did have a conversation about what each of us thought.
And all 4 agreed that he was guilty, correct?
And none of us were jurors.
No, trust me, I know that. But you had an abiding conviction, at least by the time of the Moselle visit, that he was guilty. And the other people in the car with you were bailiffs, were they not?
No.
Who were they?
Some were not bailiffs. One was a court reporter. One was our security officer, head security, and another was a deputy sheriff.
Okay. But the 4 of y'all rode out there, and based on what, and I mean, you want me to read to you how chilled you were and how you felt that poor Paul and and Maggie been executed by him on that scene, that visiting the scene convinced you that he was a horrible, horrible murderer? You want me to read that to you, or you will concede that's what you wrote?
I will concede that's what I wrote, but if I may, I would say that a lot of that is poetic license in writing a book and in making it sound like that.
Okay, so some of it's poetic license, and some of it you just stole. You purloined it from that BBC writer, right?
Your Honor, again, I object to not only the relevance, but the scope cross. I would object also under Rule 608. I don't believe that that's appropriate cross-examination.
Overruled. You may continue, Mr. Harpootlian.
Did you steal part of the book?
I did plagiarize,
Okay,
Mr. Harpootlian.
that's stealing, isn't it?
And it is, and for
Okay.
that I'm very sorry, and I have apologized.
Okay. And that makes it okay?
What I did, and I apologized for that.
And part of the book is, you say, literary license, exaggeration?
I wouldn't call it exaggeration.
Okay. Now let me ask you this: is Switzerland, and this is, you're saying this is happening while you're supposed to be Switzerland, you decided the defendant's guilty, and if Ms. McElmeen says that it's going to make you more money if he's found guilty, don't you think it's reasonable to assume that you may have crossed the line from time to time?
Your Honor, I object to the form of the question, assuming facts not in evidence.
Overruled.
Can you repeat that question one more time,
I'm
Mr.
not going to repeat
Harpootlian?
it. Let me just move on to something else.
Behind the Doors of Justice, The Murdaugh Murders was published months after Alex's conviction. But allegations later surfaced that Hill had been making inappropriate comments to jurors during the trial, telling them not to be fooled by Alex's testimony, suggesting they watch his body language, pressuring them toward a guilty verdict so her book would be more successful. She showed sealed, graphic crime scene photos to reporters before they were public. She took bonuses she wasn't entitled to receive. She used her public office to promote a book she was profiting from. Eventually, the truth caught up with her. Hill would plead guilty to contempt of court, willful misconduct in office, and obstruction of justice. She admitted to lying under oath multiple times. She was sentenced to community service and probation. More importantly for Alex's case, her actions triggered a motion for a new trial based on jury tampering. But when investigators interviewed the jurors, 11 out of 12 said Hill's comments had no impact on their verdict. They had convicted Alex based on evidence alone. The video, the financial motive, the missing clothes, the lies. Hill's misconduct was real and serious, but didn't manufacture guilt where none existed. In murder cases without direct evidence, without a confession or eyewitness, prosecutors must build a circumstantial case so strong that it leaves no reasonable doubt. Listen to how the state doesn't just argue Alex killed his family. They argue why. They show motive, opportunity, and means. They paint a picture of a man so desperate to avoid exposure that murder became the solution.
On the evening of June 7th, 2021, at the defendant's property off Moselle Road in Colleton County, his son Paul Murdaugh was standing in a small feed room and some kennels they had on the property. About 8:50 p.m., and the defendant over there, Alex Murdaugh, took a 12-gauge shotgun and shot him in the shoulder, in the chest and the shoulder with buckshot. And the evidence is going to show it was a 1,000,000-to-1 shot. He could have survived that, but after that, another shot went up under his head and did catastrophic damage to his brain and his head. The evidence is going to show that Paul collapsed right outside that feed room. And just moments later, he picked up a .300 Blackout, which is a type of ammunition, but an AR-style rifle. And the evidence is going to show that the family had multiple weapons throughout the property. Picked up that .300 Blackout rifle and opened fire on his wife, Maggie, just feet away near some sheds that used to be a hangar. Pow, pow. 2 shots, abdomen in the leg, and took her down. And after that, there were additional shots, including 2 shots to the head that again did catastrophic damage. killed her instantly. The evidence is going to show that neither Paul nor Maggie had any defensive wounds. Neither one of them had any defensive wounds, as if they didn't see a threat coming from their attacker. And the evidence is also going to show that both Maggie and Paul were shot at extremely close range. The evidence is going to show it's called stippling. It's almost like a tattoo, that when you get shot very close to a weapon, it leaves marks that the forensic pathologist can see. They were shot at close range and they did not have defensive wounds. And the evidence is going to show that the defendant, Alex Murdaugh over there, told anyone who would listen that he was never at those kennels. But the evidence is also going to show from these things that every one of us, most of us carry around in our pockets, that he was there. And he was there just minutes before, with Maggie and Paul, just minutes before their cell phones go silent forever and ever. Despite what he told people, I was never at those kennels, the cell phones are going to show otherwise.
Lead prosecutor Creighton Waters laid out a theory that was as straightforward as it was chilling. Alex Murdaugh killed his wife and son to buy time. With their deaths came sympathy. With sympathy came patience. The financial hearing was postponed. The questions about missing money were delayed. The scrutiny on his crimes was replaced with concern for his loss. He bet everything on tragedy, giving him the breathing room he needed to cover his tracks, to replace what he'd stolen, to somehow avoid the complete annihilation of his name and legacy. But Alex made a critical miscalculation. He gambled that in 2021, with modern technology and digital footprints everywhere, he could still control a narrative through sheer force of will and family reputation like his ancestors had for generations. He didn't account for a video he didn't know existed. He didn't consider that phones leave trails that investigators can follow minute by minute. He underestimated the tenacity of prosecutors who wouldn't let the Murdaugh name intimidate them into backing down. Waters systematically presented the circumstantial evidence, the financial desperation, the timeline that placed Alex at the scene, the missing clothes that were never found, the blue raincoat discovered at his mother's house 3 months after the murders with significant gunshot residue on the inside, the phone data showing his movements, the lies told again and again until video evidence made them impossible to maintain. Each piece by itself might not have been enough, but together they form a picture of guilt that the jury couldn't ignore. In what might be his final moments of freedom, Alex turned to his surviving son. Buster had sat through weeks of testimony detailing how his father murdered his mother and brother. He had watched evidence pile up. He had heard witnesses describe his father's lies and thefts. What do you say in that moment? How do you preserve your image in your son's eyes when everything else has been destroyed?
Buster, I am so sorry that I let you down. I am so sorry that I have not been able to be with you. During such hard times. I am so sorry that I did so many things that are so contradictory to every single thing Mom and I ever taught you and Paul. I am so sorry. I am so very sorry that the things that I did and that I am pleading guilty to here today have somehow caused some people, especially people on social media, and some people in the media, to somehow believe that based on the things that I did, that it is somehow okay to make false, baseless, unsubstantiated claims against you that are not only based on no facts and no evidence whatsoever, but are also not based on any semblance of reality whatsoever. And I am so sorry that you have had to go through that. I know, Buster, that you know that I have always been proud of you. I have never been more proud of you than I am for the way that you have handled all of the adversity that I put on you. Your whole family is proud of you. Mom is proud of you, and Papa is proud of you. I see in letters, emails, and messages that people give to my attorneys how impressed people are with the way that you have carried yourself through all of this. I want you to remember that rational, reasonable thinking people never make as much noise as haters do. I want you to continue to tune them out and continue to be the bigger person as you have this whole time. I want you to continue to stay positive and stay the course. I love you so much, and I am so proud of you. Next.
The words Alex spoke to Buster were carefully chosen. Emotional, but controlled. He told Buster he loved him, that he was innocent, that the Rayall killers were still out there, that they would find justice eventually. But those words weren't just for Buster. They were for anyone who might still believe in Alex's innocence. They were for appeals courts who would review the case later. They were for history, for the desperate hope that someday the Murdaugh name might be remembered for something other than murder and theft. But legacies aren't built on final courtroom speeches. They're built on actions taken when no one is watching, on how you treat people who trust you, on whether you protect the vulnerable or prey on them, on whether you tell the truth when lying would be easier. Alex Murdaugh failed every one of those tests. His words to Buster, like everything else he said, felt hollow, calculated, empty. Even after the video evidence, after forensic testimony, after weeks of damning facts, Alex maintained his innocence. But there's something revealing about denial in the face of overwhelming proof. It becomes its own kind of testimony, showing a man so committed to his lies that he can't acknowledge truth even when it's destroying him.
I'm Alex Murdaugh, Murdaugh. Good morning.
Mr. Murdaugh, on June 7th, 2021, if you take a 300 blackout, such as this, and fire it into your wife Maggie's leg, torso, or any part of her body?
No, I did not.
Did you shoot a 300 blackout into her head, causing her death?
Mr. Griffin, I didn't shoot my wife or my son anytime. Ever.
Mr. Murdaugh, is that you? And in the interview of August 11th, did you tell Agent Owen and Agent Croft, did you lie to them by telling them that you were not down at the kennels on that night?
Yes.
Alec, why did you lie to Agent Owen, Agent Croft, and Deputy Rutland about the last time you saw Maggie and Paul?
To the very end, Alec insisted he could never harm Maggie and Paul. He claimed investigators had tunnel vision, that they ignored other suspects, that the real killers walked free while he was being railroaded. But the jury saw through it. They saw a man caught in a web he had woven himself. A man who had lied so habitually that truth and fiction had become indistinguishable to him. A man who, when faced with the choice between exposure and murder, chose the unthinkable. During cross-examination, Prosecutor Creighton Waters asked Alec directly, "Are you a family annihilator?" Alec responded in a measured, practiced tone. "You mean, did I shoot my wife and son? No, I would never hurt Maggie Murdaugh. I would never hurt Paul Murdaugh under any circumstances." As he said these words, he nodded his head in emphasis. Waters pointed out that Alec had done the exact same thing in police interviews when he lied about being at the kennels. The nod, the emphasis, the false sincerity. The performance was consistent even as the stories changed. After 6 weeks of testimony from more than 75 witnesses, after 800 pieces of evidence, after moments of high drama and technical tedium, the case went to the jury. They deliberated for less than 3 hours. On March 2nd, 2023, they returned with their verdict. Guilty on all counts. 2 counts of murder. 2 counts of possession of a weapon during the commission of a violent crime. This is where power finally meets accountability. For nearly a century, the Murdaugh name meant control over justice in these courtrooms. Now, one final time, a Murdaugh would hear a sentence pronounced. But this time, he wasn't the prosecutor determining someone else's fate. He was the defendant learning his own.
And I have lived with this case now for over 2 years, and I have 34 days left before active retirement. And after imposing this sentence, your life will continue. I will turn the page and leave you behind. You're quite an enigma, a person that many of us thought we knew. And as I stated earlier, I can only recall you as being a fun-loving, happy person. I've never seen you sad. I've never seen you being anything other than a friendly, caring person. And it's so disappointing to see you again in this setting. I believe the last time we saw each other and you were not in jail was at a conference when you were poolside having a good time. And as it turns out, that was a couple of months after the passing of your wife and son. But you were having a good time, made nothing of it, and And then the Labor Day weekend events occurred, and next thing I know, I'm assigned to preside over all of your matters. Not on your matters, but others as well. And we started out with over 100 charges, indictments against various folks, and we've whittled that down to just a handful outstanding. And I'm happy to turn the page and turn, not turn the remnants over to anyone else, but to certainly turn over anything pending against you to someone else. It's been said that these are white-collar offenses. I've never had that distinction. I've never thought of it that way. I've looked at criminal offenses as criminal offenses. 3 property crimes in South Carolina you can get 10 years in prison. People have gotten 10 years for shoplifting, 3rd offense. I've sent people into retirement for committing criminal offenses over and over and over again. But I've never thought of it as being a white-collar offense. Having had employees do embezzlement, church secretaries stole money, preachers stolen money, many offenses. But I never draw a distinction between a violent crime and other crimes. Certainly the law makes a distinction, and many violent crimes are non-parole offenses. The plea I'm accepting with you, you must serve 85% of the time. The parties have indicated that they are the victims, to the extent that they can be called victims there. That's my preferred term for the group of people who have been preyed upon or victimized. They've all indicated that they would like for the court to accept the negotiated sentence. It is a stern sentence. The question was asked, what kind of animal are you? You're an enigmatic person. I don't know that you understand yourself. What comes to mind is a young man that I sentenced to death penalty for killing a police officer and setting his body on fire. And though personally I was opposed to capital punishment, he was sentenced to death. And in writing up that sentence report, I concluded that he was heartless. He was just empty. And when I see you and I listen to you and I reflect on all that I've seen since being appointed, assigned to these cases, you come closest to that young man. Being empty, I don't see anything. I tried to reach you at sentencing in the other case. I've listened to you here today, and I don't see anything there. Hopefully something will emerge within your spirit, within your soul. Certainly, being a person of your age and intelligence and experience, you have a lot to offer to the people that you encounter on a daily basis in the institution, and I think it's admirable that you've indicated that you will help them and continue to try to do good by them. You'll certainly have a lot of opportunity to do that. As we look at all of us, none of us are perfect. Many of us do things that we shouldn't do. It's just unimaginable to me that you have done some of the things that you've done, and whether it's you or someone you become upon using drugs or through the process of just committing the crimes over and over the period of years. I don't know. I don't know. I don't even know who I'm speaking to now. But being a person of power and influence, and the question is raised of what type of character do you have? A person who would prey upon folks who are vulnerable and who are of a lower perceived estate than you, how you would prey upon those people who you say you love, and you would capitalize on a disparity of what you have versus what they had and what they need and what they desired. In my years, I know of no greater joy as a lawyer that I've had during my 47 years as a lawyer than the joy of of having a satisfied client, of delivering good results for a client and experiencing that joy with them. I can think of no greater joy than I've experienced in being able to deliver on behalf of a client, and I'm sure you've experienced that joy as well until you decided that the only joy you're concerned about was your own. I take no joy at all in imposing this sentence, but it is what it is. And you'll have to suffer the consequences of your acts, continue to suffer the consequences, and hopefully some good will come out of you as you move forward.
The sentencing came swiftly the next morning. 2 consecutive life sentences without the possibility of parole. No chance of freedom. No hope of redemption. Alec would die in prison. Additional federal sentences would follow for his financial crimes, totaling 40 years, ensuring that even if the murder convictions were somehow overturned, he would never walk free. The dynasty that began in 1920 with his grandfather's election ended in a courtroom in 2023, not with honor, but with the sound of a gavel falling on a convicted killer. The Murdaugh murders didn't just destroy one family. They exposed a system that had allowed one family too much power for too long. Questions emerged about other deaths that had been connected to the Murdaughs over the years. Stephen Smith, a 19-year-old found dead on a rural road in 2015 with injuries that didn't match the official story of being struck by a vehicle. Gloria Satterfield, whose fall at the Murdaugh home led to her death, but whose family was then defrauded of millions. Mallory Beach, killed in the boat crash Paul caused while intoxicated. Each case raised questions about whether justice had been served or perverted by Murdaugh influence. The Moselle estate, where Maggie and Paul died, was eventually sold. The main house and 21 surrounding acres went for $1 million, far below market value. New owners renovated it, trying to erase the darkness that had seeped into the walls. But some places carry their history, no matter how thoroughly you try to cleanse them. Buster Murdaugh, the only surviving son, has maintained his father's innocence. He has filed defamation lawsuits against media companies that covered the case. He has spoken publicly about his belief that his father was wrongfully convicted. He lives now with a burden no amount of family money or legacy can erase. The knowledge that the world believes his father murdered his mother and brother, and the evidence that suggests that belief might be true. Alex's appeals continue. His attorneys have argued jury tampering based on Becky Hill's misconduct. They've claimed ineffective assistance of counsel. They've challenged the admission of financial crime evidence. The South Carolina Supreme Court has agreed to review certain aspects of the case. But legal experts consider his chances of a successful appeal extremely slim. The evidence was too strong. The video was too clear. The lies were too many. What makes someone capable of killing their own family? Psychologists who study family annihilators, the term for those who murder their spouses and children, have identified common patterns. They're often facing imminent exposure of secrets. They're narcissistic, caring more about their image than the actual lives of their loved ones. They see murder as a way to control a narrative that's spinning out of their grasp. They believe if they can't have their family on their terms, no one will have them. Alex Murdaugh fits that profile perfectly. He was about to be exposed as a thief and fraud. His reputation, the thing he valued above everything else, was about to be destroyed. Maggie had been asking questions about money. Paul's legal troubles from the boat crash were draining resources and drawing scrutiny. They had become problems instead of assets, obstacles instead of supporters. In Alex's calculations, whatever those calculations were in those final moments at the kennels, they were worth more dead than alive. But we'll likely never know exactly what went through his mind when he pulled those triggers. Did he plan it for days, selecting the weapons and waiting for the right moment? Or did something snap in that instant, a rage or panic that turned murderous? Did he look Maggie and Paul in the eyes as he killed them? Or did he disconnect somehow, compartmentalize so completely that he could execute his wife and son, then call 911 minutes later with genuine sounding panic? The answers died with Maggie and Paul. All we have left are the facts. A video that placed Alec at the scene. A timeline that gave him opportunity. A motive that explained the unthinkable. And a pattern of lies that revealed a man capable of anything when his back was against the wall. The Murdaugh case is more than a murder trial. It's a story about what happens when power goes unchecked for generations. About how reputation and influence can delay justice but never prevent it forever. About the terrible calculations people make when they decide their problems can only be solved through violence. And it's a reminder that in the modern digital age, truth has a way of surviving, preserved in video and data and electronic footprints, long after the people who witnessed it are gone. Alex Murdaugh thought he could control the narrative the way his family had controlled the legal system for 87 years. He thought he could craft an alibi, manipulate an investigation, and emerge from tragedy with sympathy instead of suspicion. He believed his name and reputation would protect him like they had protected his family from accountability for decades. He was catastrophically wrong. Not because investigators were flawless, though they were thorough. Not because prosecutors were brilliant, though their case was compelling. He was wrong because his son, in an innocent moment trying to help a friend worried about a dog, pressed record on his phone. That recording, that 50 seconds of mundane footage of a dog in a kennel, captured the one thing Alec couldn't explain away or lie about or manipulate. His voice at the crime scene at the time of the murders. Sometimes justice comes down to the smallest details. A video that was never meant to be evidence. A passcode that took months to crack. A lie that held until technology revealed the truth. The Murdaugh dynasty rose on a foundation of law and power. It fell because of a single piece of evidence that the law couldn't ignore and power couldn't suppress. The murders at Moselle will be studied for years to come. Documentaries will dissect every detail. Books will analyze the psychology. Podcasts will debate the motives and the evidence. But at its core, the story is tragically simple. A man chose murder over accountability. He killed his wife and son rather than face the consequences of years of theft and deception. And in doing so, he guaranteed that the Murdaugh name would be remembered not for 87 years of legal legacy, but for one night of unspeakable violence that destroyed everything. If this case tells us anything, it's that no one is truly above accountability, no matter how powerful their family, no matter how carefully they construct their lies, no matter how much influence they wield. Eventually, the truth emerges. And when it does, all the power in the world can't stop it. The question isn't whether justice will come. It's whether it will come in time. If you want more deep dives into cases where the truth refuses to stay hidden, where power meets its reckoning, and where one piece of evidence changes everything, subscribe to Dark Trail Files. Hit that notification bell because we're bringing you stories that will make you question everything you thought you knew about justice, family, and the lies people tell to protect themselves. More cases like this are coming, cases where the smallest details reveal the darkest secrets. You won't want to miss them. This is Dark Trail Files, and we'll see you in the next investigation.